So there was the whole discussion yesterday. It was tabled, motion was tabled yesterday, and the majority side proposed that the best way to handle this matter is to have a select team, 11 senators, sit in a committee who will interrogate this matter. They'll call in the accusers, and this is the County Assembly of Kirinyaga, and they'll also call in the defense, and this is Anne Waiguru. She'll come in and will hear the accusations, and the senators, the Senate committee will interrogate the matter deeply, thoroughly, objectively, and come up with a report. And then that report will be tabled in Parliament, and they'll recommend the next steps. Either they'll agree with the County Assembly of Kirinyaga and say this governor ought to be impeached, or they'll disagree and say we have not found sufficient evidence to warrant impeaching the governor of Kirinyaga County or removing her from office.
How were these 11 selected?
They're usually selected, by the majority. They sit down, the leaders of the House, the leader of the majority, the leader of the minority, and the whips. They sit down and they're like, all right, so we need to create an 11-member committee. Okay. Now, of course, the 11-member committee, the majority will reflect in the committee in terms of they'll also be the majority in the committee, and the minority will also reflect in terms of being the minority in the committee. Yep.
Okay.
And then they propose these names before the House. Now, the drama was in the Senate because remember, just a couple of months ago, we had the same issue regarding former Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu, Babayao. When the issue of Babayao was taken to the Senate, the then leader of the majority, Kipchumba Murkomen, had proposed an 11-member committee to interrogate this matter. This is normal. I mean, it's provided even in the standing orders of the Senate that when a matter like this comes, the Senate can either opt to have a select committee looking into it, or it can decide to have the entire House becoming the committee.
Yes.
And so the plenary interrogates the matter. Kipchumba proposed 11-member committee. The House, when they were debating that, they rejected that proposal.
Shut it down properly.
And they said, no, everything has to be aired in public here for all of us to see, to hear the allegations, to vote going forward. We don't want to be told by a select committee that has sat somewhere that this is what we heard and this is what we are proposing and recommending. Yesterday, it was the other way around completely. The majority side of the Senate yesterday was saying, committee is the best. In fact, the work of Parliament, a lot of the work of Parliament happens in committees.
True.
Committees do a lot of work.
True.
And this one now gives us an opportunity to interrogate better, to have a team that sits and works even longer hours to interrogate this. A committee can even sit until midnight working on this. We have seen other committees looking at the other governors before. This would work perfectly well. This is the best way to go. And then they can come and tell us what their recommendation is, and we'll look at what their report says. We will vote to either adopt the report or to reject the report. But committee, best route. Kipchumba Murkomen, who's now no longer a leader of anything in the House, was there leading the troops saying, no, this thing ought to be done by the whole House. Tables turn. We must uphold democracy. We must have transparency in these matters. We must see and hear what everybody thinks and what everybody says. We must all hear for ourselves what the County Assembly of Kirinyaga has against this governor. In fact, at some point, the leader of the minority, James Orengo, stood up and said, look, come on. This is, and he likened this, he went to the story of the Bible. King Herod, who married a woman called Herodias, and Herodias was this woman who, because there's a man called John the Baptist who had opposed the marriage.
He didn't marry that woman. It was his brother's wife.
Yes, he took the brother's wife. Because John had opposed this union of these two, Herodias did not like this particular person called John the Baptist. So this one time, Herod holds a birthday party for his wife, and the wife's daughter comes and dances very well, and clearly inebriated Herod calls and says, ask me anything you want. I'll give, even if it's half my kingdom.
I'll give you.
I'll give you. Girl goes to mother. Girl asks mother, what should I ask for?
Head, platter, John.
Head, John, platter here. This is what Orengo is saying. There's somebody who wants Waiguru's head on a platter here. And it's not the people of Kirinyaga County or the members of the County Assembly of Kirinyaga. There is a Herodias somewhere who has sent these girls to come and ask for the head of Anne Waiguru. We are not going to participate in this. And this is This was the complaint. This is what he was saying. No. There are other underhand deals happening here, and we need to make sure that we are not going to give them space to come and misuse this honorable assembly to do that.
Right.
Drama, drama. Drama galore. Let's speak to somebody who was in the house yesterday, and this is the Narok Senator Ledama Olekina. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Eric. How are you doing?
Salama kabisa. Welcome to the Situation Room. It's been a while.
I know. COVID.
Oh, right.
Everything is COVID now.
Well, what can we say? It's the new order of the world.
True.
Yeah.
Now, Senator, you voted, first of all, there was a move to create a committee, and there was opposition for that, to have the entire plenary sitting and listening to these accusations and making a decision. You voted committee route. Why?
Yes, I did. I just think it's fair. It will be fair for both parties. Eric, remember that Article 96 of the Constitution is very clear, that my role in the Senate is to defend the interests of the counties and their government. I have studied the Constitution clearly. I have been a member of the Public Accounts and Investment Committee. I have gone through 47 Auditor General reports to see how counties, spend their money. I know who the executive authority is vested in. It is not on an individual, but on a committee.
Mm-hmm.
I invite you to even pick up a copy of the Auditor General report. I know you have Google there.
Mm-hmm.
When you download the document, it is actually the entire executive committee, which is what is enshrined in the Constitution, Article 179. I felt that there was a lot of hullabaloo which was being made outside there. There was a lot of noise out there. We were now being directed by people from outside that we should go a certain way, Yet the people who are doing that have no idea of our standing orders. Most of the work, especially work that involves a lot of money, it is actually investigated properly through a committee. Because the committee will have time to even travel to Kirinyaga, go and verify those allegations. They have time to go through the tender documents. We do not have that time at plenary. In fact, at plenary, you cannot even ask a question. At plenary, it is a little bit discriminatory in the sense that when you are going through the documentation, unless the evidence is quite clear, like in the case of Kiambu Governor, where there was a lot of paper trail, you could see letters written by the former governor, Tito. You could also see that the deputy governor bolted from the get-go, and he was not part of the executive committee. And at that time, when I was looking at it from there, because I was in the House Business Committee, I just said, you know what, any which way. Plenary or committee for Tito
This goose
will
is
give the
cooked.
people of Kiambu, yes, it will be justice, and this goose was cooked.
But okay, so before we even go into those, comparing those two processes, you have mentioned that there are people who are outside the house who are trying to influence how this matter should be handled. Who are these people?
Yeah. Yes.
Who are these people?
If you remember, way back in March, I believe it was around March 13th, there was a huge fight on one big piece of land in Kirinyaga, about 100 acres.
Mm-hmm.
That is when the fight started. The MCAs wanted Anwe Guru to release the title deed for the 100-acre land to the Kenya Medical Research Institute. That whole project was worth about 15 billion. There was a lot of fight out there, and she said, no, if I'm going to release this land, I want to know how it's going to benefit the Wanjikos of Kirinyaga. That is when really the whole beef started. People started fighting her, you can go on the internet and search, and I'm sure you'll be able to come out and see the people who were fighting her.
The watchdog, which is the MCAs, were asking one thing. The executive, which is the governor, was saying something different. Is that really a fight, or is that basically a cause of governance?
It becomes a fight when you know your role. There is a clear separation of powers. You know, the parliament in this case. Let's even call it the assembly.
Yep.
The assembly in this case, their role is oversight. Their role is not to execute. You know, you've given me a mandate to execute. Don't try and come and dictate or micromanage every process. Ask me. You know, when I send my officers to appear before the Public Accounts and Investment Committee of the Assembly, you know, ask them, how come this has not been done well? How come this has not been done well? See, the problem is this. We forget our roles. If you look at even most MCAs in this country, they have been pushing for something called a ward development, or whatever, fund.
Yep.
You know, that is not my role as a legislator. My role is to, you know, make laws. My role is to approve the budget of the executive. But now, if I also want to have money to carry out certain functions of the executive, what exactly are we doing? You know, there's an issue of competition here.
Okay.
You know, you say, the governor has done this, the governor has done this.
Going back to March, so who is this? Who started this fight, and who is this then that is influencing how the Senate should handle this matter?
I don't think that's a fair question to ask, because I read what
other quarters.
I read in the let me put it this way: we've seen it in the press. We've seen people talking. You know, in the media, the Kirinyaga leadership. I don't know their names. I just see them on TV saying, "Oh, we are the Kirinyaga leaders. We want." It goes into even to the extent of saying, "You guys, you know, you took our girl. Let her go. We don't want her back here." You know, when you see such people arguing and making such arguments, I don't really know them in person. I just see them screaming out there. And then there was a huge campaign in the media of people saying, no, we do not. We want 68 people to listen to all these issues, and they don't even know the processes. They don't even know that not 68 senators vote. I mean, it's only 47 senators
delegations
who are elected. Yes, you know. So really, you cannot try and dictate. You cannot come in and tell me. I cannot come in right now and tell you, hey, guys, in the situation room, this is how I want you to carry out your affairs. You know, right. It's your choice.
It's clear this. Just looking at this going forward, Senator, it's clear that this is going to go the committee way, and there are sentiments out there that the outcome has already been decided. Is that the case? And can you dissuade people from that belief?
It is very unfortunate. I can tell you that. That's
the case, or that people feel that way.
The way the people feel, you know, because you cannot judge a book by its cover. I felt like we were being attacked for nothing, because when people were discussing these issues, I had not even seen the charges. I had not even seen what do they have. Now, let me ask you a question. Suppose they bring in like 10 truckloads of documents as evidence, okay? And they are not allowed to enter the chambers for them to be able to, prosecute their case, or call witnesses. How will the plenary help them? In fact, the committee will do a better job, because the committee will say, okay, do you have witnesses? Yes.
How come this argument was not used in the Waitito case? Like you're saying, you personally sat in the House Business Committee, and you looked at the evidence brought, and you already passed judgment and said, okay, this one, the goose is cooked.
No. Eric, get me. I want you to get me very clearly. I sat in the House Business, and in the House Business, we proposed the committee way. We gave names, okay, from our side of NASA, and Jubilee gave their names. When we went to the floor of the House, just like yesterday, okay, the motion to have it go committee way was defeated. After it was defeated, I looked at the document and I said, okay, fair enough. I think really this is not a very long case. Because, first of all, Waitito did not even file a response when he was required to file.
Same
he
thing.
actually came in with he came in with a preliminary objection, saying that this should not be, I should not be, the Senate should not be hearing this matter. Yes.
Same thing with Waiguru, isn't it?
No. Waiguru went to court. There's separation of powers here. She's gone to court. We will know if Waiguru will file a response to the committee. Okay? Because you remember, we voted for it to go plenary. Then we gave a date, a special sitting, when now the trial would begin. And you are given a period of time to be able to file your responses. He refused. What he filed was a preliminary objection.
Yep.
Yeah. So really, what he should have done, as for our standing orders, is that he should have filed his entire response and then put in an application for preliminary objection and say, I have filed my all the responses, and part of the responses include a preliminary objection. And these are the reasons why, A, B, C, D.
Okay, so the public feeling here is, number one, the Waitito case, because Waitito was on the wrong side of the political divide, his goose was cooked. He was with Tangatanga. Tangatanga leaders came into the house and they wanted to take it to a committee. And the committee was, as it had been proposed, was clearly dominated by Tangatanga people. So the assumption was that, well, they were going to clear him. In this particular case, Anne Waiguru is seen to be on the correct side of things politically. She supports the handshake, she supports BBI, she is on the Kieleweke side, so she's not Tangatanga. And that's why we were seeing Tangatanga legislators yesterday opposing everything else that has been proposed by the majority. Now, is it not fair to say that looking at how we saw in the Waitito case and looking at what we are seeing in this particular case, simply because she's on the right side of the majority in the House, she's likely to get cleared?
First of all, Eric, let me put it this way. The Senate of the Republic of Kenya is made up of 47 elected senators. It doesn't matter how many people you have in Lamu or how many people you have in Nairobi. If you have 800,000 people who elect you in Nairobi versus 70,000 people who elect you in Lamu, you are equal. The Senate is a house of union. It is a house that unites all these people. It is comprised of two sides of the divide, the opposition and the government. This whole story is about Kieleweke, Tangatanga, BBI, handshake. It's not something for that house. We pass legislations in that house through a bipartisan approach. We look at what is good for the country. So all these things, we don't want to bring in the politics outside. Because let me tell you, we will be dancing to the gallery if we agree to go with what the public is saying there. We shouldn't. We cannot be swayed in a certain way. We should be given an opportunity. And I'm telling you, this is the only way that the people of Kirinyaga will get their justice. Because everything will be out in open. The press will get an opportunity to look at and examine all the evidence which will be presented by both parts, and also, but before, if it was happen the other way, Akuna, you will not get an opportunity. The other thing, which is very clear, and this is the point that I would want to emphasize on, is that since the executive authority is vested in a group of individuals, not a one individual, I think this impeachment proceedings will be able to help Kenyans take charge. If you've appointed me as the CC in charge of finance, it is my responsibility as per the Public Finance Management Act, the powers that I've given by the PFM Act or the PPTA, or even the Public Audit Act, that I ensure fiduciary responsibility. It doesn't matter if the governor tells me, hey, Ebu write a check for me for $100,000. Unless it's in the budget, unless it is something which is approved for particular expenses, I will not. Because I know Article 226, subsection 5 of the Constitution would swallow me alive.
Mheshimiwa,
So
from what I hear you say, I am getting the impression that the Senate is a place where the fundamental focus of all the members is to ensure that the Kenyan citizen gets a fair shake. And in so saying, we seem to have given the divisions and the animosity that sometimes exists between the opposition and government a backseat. Is it really true and right to say that your representation of Senate is a true representation of all the senators?
That's my belief, that as senators, when we sit together, we look at whatever has been presented to us, we actually defend the Constitution. We represent the entire country.
All of
Because
you.
when I'm speaking,
I'm sorry, Senator,
That
but if
is
we're
the
just going to
position.
come out
That
of
is the
what was
position.
said even yesterday, and we look at what, if you're saying that you're representative as a whole, there are sentiments coming out of Senate even now that are very clear that they would have preferred to go a different way. We heard the former majority whip. What did he say yesterday? He said, as far as he's
Majority Leader.
concerned, the decision has already been made. These are individuals who are going to make a decision. We already know which way it's going to go. How can that be said on one hand, and then you say that there's a collective agreement on how Senate is going forward? How can that be when it's very clear, even if it is just perception, it is very clear that there is a divide?
let me correct this. Our hope in the Senate and what has happened previously is that we've always sat down and agreed on things through a bipartisan approach. But when interest, it's put in first, then the divide is very clear. Whatever had happened, and if you remember very well, I don't know whether you watched my interview with Ann Kikuta, I said the changes which were going to be made were going to make it very difficult for Kenyans to see the Senate as one house. Because all the tactics that the former majority leader was using yesterday, heckling, trying to buy time, we're even very lucky that the standing orders give the speaker latitude, for him to extend the time when he wants to. Because by the time it got to 6:30 p.m., we had not yet completed the voting. And remember, we took so much time arguing whether we should extend,
which you refused to extend.
Which we refused because it was more like filibustering. You can talk until tomorrow morning or talk until the next day. And nothing stops you. Remember, you can just see what was happening.
It was clear that your minds were made up. It was clear your minds were made up.
It was not clear that our minds were made up. It was not clear.
Perception is a big deal, Senator, and the perception out there. I don't think we can divorce ourselves from the state of things and perception of the people, because the perception then forms decisions. And here we see that it seems as if from the get-go that this is what we wanted to do, and that is how the day was going to end. Now, that's the perception that
we
was
didn't
out there.
want
How
this
can
thing
you
to
really
be
change
different.
that from what we saw that was taking place yesterday?
I want to appeal to Kenyans to really try to understand the procedures of Parliament. Okay? This was not the debate of impeaching Waiguru. If it was the debate, if it had been decided that we go plenary in terms of confirming the impeachment, because the Senate doesn't impeach. What the Senate does, it confirms. Okay? If it was a debate on confirmation, I don't care. It can even go for 4 days. We can spend the night there, wake up again, drink coffee, and continue. But this was just agreeing. Which way do we go? It was a procedural motion, really, a very basic procedural motion. But we created a big hullabaloo because we wanted to please people out there and lie to the public out there that we are defending their interest. And we were not.
What do you say, Senator? This committee comprises of 4 members of ODM, 5 members of Jubilee, 1 member of KANU, and 1 member of the Amani National Congress. This makes it 11. And, well, clearly you can see that if we go with Jubilee and the Jubilee coalition, post-election coalition with KANU, then Jubilee has a majority of 6, and then the NASA coalition has 5. Now, we are speaking with the ODM Senator Ledama Olekina. He's a senator for Narok County. And before we went into the look at traffic, Senator, I'd asked you, the Director of Elections in ODM, Junaid Mohammed, has been saying publicly and repeating for all to hear that ODM wants to stand behind the governor of Kirinyaga County, Anne Waiguru. Now, you've talked about people who are outside the Senate trying to influence how members of the Senate will think and vote in this one. Here we're talking about a leader of your party speaking outside the Senate. He's not even a member of the Senate, but speaking about what the wishes of the party are. What do you say to that?
I'm glad you say that he's not even a member of the Senate. You know, no one stops anybody from saying what he or she wants to say. The last I checked, although sometimes we get in trouble for speaking our mind, we have freedom of speech. And that's exactly why I said that we in the Senate were not going to be dictated or directed by anybody outside there. Junaid has his right to express his view, but remember that Junaid is the whip of the National Assembly. He is not the whip of the Senate.
Yeah.
If it was Mutula Kilonzo talking outside there, I would have picked up the phone and said, "Hey, boss, what the hell is going on? Why couldn't you wait for us to be able to discuss this issue in-house?" But of course, you know, politicians will always be politicians. They will say their views, they will say whatever they want to say there. And you know, politicians are known to be very controversial.
Junaid has been categorical that these are not just his wishes, but also the wishes of the party leader.
You know, let me tell you, it will not be fair to actually say that. Eric, I would want you to call Junaid and ask Junaid, what did you mean by this? Because I saw my own party leader speaking, and my party leader said, that is not my work. I'm not going to comment. Let senators do their work. And let me tell you something, by the way, which you don't know. Raila does not dictate what happens in the House. You know, sometimes even some of us are meant to believe that we dictate certain things, but he doesn't. We never, let me put it this way, we never even have a meeting with Raila for him to tell us, go vote a certain way, vote a certain way. By the way, we normally caucus, you know, as senators of NASA, and the person who talks to us there is, of course, you know, our leader in the House, which is Senator Orengo, and we all give our views very independently. You had yesterday the senator from Kitui, Wambua, giving his own divergent opinion. Earlier on, we had a caucus and we met, and you know, and of course, everyone said, "This is how I feel." You know, I feel about this. How I feel in the whole process. So really, we're very independent. I can tell you that. When it comes to us making a decision, we consult, we discuss. You know, but what I find that from the other side of the divide, they don't really consult. Maybe somebody comes and tells them, we're doing it, we're voting this way. You know, yesterday when I had an interview... So
the majority side, it's possible that they are influenced from outside the House?
Before. I don't know about now. I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen a lot of people now talking. Let me tell you why. You know, before, you know, and I'll take you back to, like, the Ruaraka land report. My friend, they were all told to leave the chambers. The only people who remained there were 4 people, and I have respect because they voted no, and have respect for them. Because they said, no, we are voting no on this, but we don't want our people who to be here. And immediately after that vote, they all walked in. So you ask yourself, Kwani, what is wrong with the whole process?
It's a work of whipping.
In fact, at that time, we used to call them voting machines.
Senator, are you saying that in such matters, there never, ever is anything like a party position?
No, there's no party position. Akuna, let me tell you, we are just told, gentlemen, let's listen to this. You know, someone will give their preference and say, okay, let's do this. Someone will stand there and convince you and say, gentlemen, I feel like this matter will be dealt better in a committee. You know?
So when your fellow senators, just the other day, when your fellow senators were voting you out of a committee, was that orders from above? Was it their own individual thinking? Because you came out complaining that they had been whipped a certain direction.
Eric, my fellow senators never voted me out of a committee. That is not, those are not facts. Okay? And that is now water under the tunnel. You know, we move on. You know? I personally resigned from the chairperson position, and I withdrew the case because it's only a fool who doesn't change his mind, and I'm still too young. So I'd rather not get into fights for nothing, you know, because really
live to fight another day.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So finally, as we let you go and start the day, Senator, I would like you to speak to Kenyans because they are those
I was falling asleep in an interview, so but now because of getting tired, we're gone.
As you speak to Kenyans, you know, there are those that are looking at that house and saying, we saw what happened to the IT2 case just the other day. We are seeing what's happening to the Igoro case. Even before yesterday in the Senate, we've been asking callers to call in and tell us, what do you think the direction this is going to take? And people were saying, come on, this has already been decided. From Capitol Hill and from State House, Igoro is going nowhere. So tell me, when the report comes before the full plenary for you to participate in voting, even looking at how this shall be conducted, can we be sure that senators are actually going to be objective?
First of all, let me put it this way. It's very unfortunate that during the impeachment proceedings of Governor Igoro, actually, let me put it under Governor Igoro, people started creating a huge hullabaloo at the initial stages of deciding which way to go, plenary or committee. If you compare it with the Waitito report or Waitito impeachment proceedings, people got interest when Waitito actually appeared in the Senate. So the perception out there is wrong. It is very difficult to change people's perception, but I want to appeal to Kenyans to really try and understand the procedures of Parliament. When I was outside Parliament, I could say all the nasty things that I wanted to say about Parliament because I did not know how Parliament, operate. So before you throw a stone at Parliament, try to ask yourself, what does Parliament do? How does Parliament make their laws? Sometimes we'll even find a small motion, a procedural motion, being subjected into a decision or a ruling by the Speaker, just because of public interest out there. So let us not try to, throw blame games and say, a dice is cast. It was very unfortunate that my colleague, Murkomen, who understands clearly the procedures of Parliament, would go out on national television and tell Kenyans that this issue of Waiguru is done. We will only be restricted to the evidence, which will be tabled by both sides. I want to assure Kenyans that as one of their senators, I will do my best. I will go through the report, and going through the report, I will look at all the evidence, and I will even go to the extent of creating a page and pasting all the evidence there so that Kenyans can be able to see.
Okay.
And then from there, they can be able to make their mind. But I really want to ask them, when you elect someone to represent you, trust that he's going to do the best. And please, let us divorce interests. Eric, I invite you to go on Google and search Kirinyaga, land sagas and everything, and you will be able to understand. You'll be able to get the whole picture.
Okay.
This is not about one person. I'll be very candid. I have no interest in saving any governor or convicting any governor. All I want is a rule of law, and we'll be guided by the Constitution of Kenya. We want to be able to set a precedent. We will not be dictated upon by anybody outside there. We will do what is right. And what is right is to give justice to both Anne Waiguru and the people of Kirinyaga.
One would hope that the entire Senate brigade would think the same route and act the same way. And we hope that this is what exactly we are going to see unfolding in the matter of the Kirinyaga governor's impeachment. Thank you very much for speaking to us, Honorable Ledama Olekina.
You're welcome, Eric.
Asante sana, and have a good day.
Good day.
This is a situation on Miss Kenya's biggest conversation. We shift gears now. It's 13 minutes after 8. The conversation continues. Well, we will see what happens in the Senate in coming days. When the committee begins sittings, when they invite the accusers, the Kirinyaga County Assembly, where they also invite the defendant, in this particular case, the governor of Kirinyaga County. Let's see the evidence that's adduced and the kind of documentation and proof that they have to raise the issues that they've raised against their governor.